What, you know what, just to be safe thing you did, end up saving your ass later. Story 1. Was delivering pizza in a sketchy block of town late at night. Huge apartment complex with multiple buildings. Walking up to the front door, I noticed a couple of guys wearing dark clothing about 100 feet behind me, walking in my direction. Delivery was on the second floor, and by the time I reached her door, I heard the main door of the apartment complex open and close. She used a CC for the order and tipped in cash, so when I was putting the receipt into my bag, where I kept my cash, I actually pulled the rest of the cash out and stuffed it into my inner jacket pocket, just to be safe, leaving just the change I had that night in the bag. Started to head down the stairs back to my car, and two guys jumped out from behind the stairs and one had a gun pointed at me and told me to give them the money. I quickly handed them my bag filled with quarters and they took off towards the back entrance of the apartment complex. I never ran so fast in my life back to my car. I wanted to make sure I was as far away as possible before they realized they robbed me of $3.50 in quarters. Story 2. I dropped my high school girlfriend off, then for some reason I locked the passenger door. Not 10 minutes later, I was stopped at a red light, and some scummy-looking dude tried to open up the door. I have no idea why I locked the door after she got out. I really didn't have a habit of that. I had no idea what would have happened if that guy got in my truck. Something similar happened to me. I was dropping my friend off at home. He lived in a sketchy neighborhood. I had my driver's side door locked, and as soon as he got out I immediately locked the other one. These three girls come running out of the bushes trying to open my car doors. One jumped on my hood and king gunned it. She rolled off my car. The other chucked her drink at my driver's side door. I'm terrified to think about what they were going to do to me. Story 3. My dad lost his glasses once. He was going to just use his old prescription, but at the last minute decided to just go to the optometrist anyway in case something changed. Turned out he had a tear in his retina and was booked for surgery within 24 hours. It was bad enough, they said, he probably would have gone blind really soon had they not caught it when they did. Story 4. Learned CPR and first aid. Had to give CPR to a family friend when she collapsed from a heart attack, and thankfully she was brought back after being down for 15 minutes. She only had minor memory problems, and mostly just couldn't remember that day. She is still here and kicking years later. Story 5. My stomach had some issues and my doctor sent me for a colonoscopy just to get things checked out. They found one polyp, no big deal, not related to the current problem, and told me to come back in 5 years just in case. I put a Google reminder and forgot about it. 5 years later, I went for the colonoscopy, and they found a lot more, and said I would have ended up with cancer in 5 to 20 years for sure had I not gone. Instead, they removed all polyps and now I'm regularly going to colonoscopies due to having a syndrome they identified. I'm far away from the age where you normally get a colonoscopy, so I would definitely have got cancer. When you are eligible, or if it is recommended, get a colonoscopy. Story 6. Not my ass, but I was getting ready for school whilst mom was vomiting in the bathroom. She said it was just a stomach bug and to just go to school, but mentioned her arm hurt. Something didn't sit right, so I called the ambulance from downstairs. They arrived and took her into the ambulance. She then proceeded to have 3 cardiac arrests and needed to be defibrillated each time. A double bypass later and she was up and about within a month. Paramedics told me she would have died 5 minutes after I left if I hadn't called. Story 7. Snow chains at the bottom of the mountain. A bunch of cars passed me on a clear road on the way up with several warnings all the way up. I saw a local throwing on chains with no snow in the area. I decided to be safe and put them on. 30 minutes later, I was in one of the worst snow driving conditions I've ever seen. Whiteout conditions in a snowstorm that eventually resulted in the complete shutdown of the roads. I passed car crash after car crash with just enough traction to feel somewhat comfortable moving 15 miles an hour. Anyone heading to Tahoe needs chains, and chains that fit. Don't F*** around. I don't care if you have a 4-wheel drive. Driving through Tahoe and Mammoth during snowstorms is no joke. Literally sunny with no clouds to blinding white darkness in an hour. If you find yourself near Heavenly and Siri sends you a snowed over hill that feels too steep, turn around. Unless you have the right setup, you aren't going to make it. Snow chains or not, you will slide. Just take the Harris gondola if it's that bad. If you don't already have your own gear, try another resort. Heavenly is uniquely bad for rentals and beginners in general. Story 8. I had a female patient coming for I-131 therapy. Patient must not be pregnant, and to make sure we do a blood test one day prior to dosing. I checked the results on the screen that were negative. I printed it out and put it in the patient file just in case. Although we went paperless years earlier. After giving her radiation safety instructions and discharging her, she came a couple of days saying that she was late. The doctor inserted another pregnancy blood test and it came out positive. The lab technician went to the previous negative blood test and changed it to positive. Hadn't I printed the test, it would look like I dosed the patient while pregnant and could get fired. Staff before this incident used to make fun of me for being paranoid. After this incident, everyone started printing the results. Story 9. Normally I'm pretty impressionable and cave to peer pressure. But this one time when I was younger, I was hanging with my friends and a couple of older high school guys I'd only met that day. The girls were all fawning over them, but I could tell they were idiots. When they all wanted to go for a drive with the guys, I thought, nah, I don't trust these guys and I think it's best I just call my parents and go home. I got a call the next morning from one of the girls who was a passenger. One of the high school boys was driving. They had a serious crash and one of the girls wasn't wearing her seatbelt and hit her head on the dash and was in a coma for 6 months. She was in intensive care and rehabilitation for years. Still can't believe all the days I decided to not go with the flow. It probably saved my life. Terribly sad about my friend. We were really close, but she never came right and her personality changed. I still wonder how successful she might have been and if we'd still be friends if that hadn't happened to her. Really sad. Story 10. Another story here. 3 older kids were going out drinking one night and my girlfriend invited me to go with them. I decided to stay home that night. They went drinking and driving. They crashed around midnight in the middle of winter. My girlfriend was lying in the snow for 8+ hours until she was found by a bus driver. She was paralyzed from the waist down. The 2 guys were killed in the crash. Very graphic scene. Very awful deaths. Never ever drink and drive. Story 11. Was watching my toddler nephew and he'd found a metal straw somewhere in the house and started playing with it. He was just tapping stuff and waving it around. But I just read a story on Reddit about a woman who got completely fucked up by a metal straw when she fell and it impaled her face. So I took the metal one from the nephew and gave him a soft, squishy silicone one to play with instead. I'm not exaggerating when I say less than 5 minutes later he fell like toddlers do and I saw the silicone straw all squished into his cheek. I had to just sit for a while after that, lol. Story 12. On a road trip with my siblings and I, Dad in Latin America, he lived there and we were visiting, on a highway at night with clouds, no moon, and no lights. This was a new highway that nobody likes taking now as criminals often leave glass or spikes to puncture tires and rob you, or worse. We were driving and this guy was pulled over and waving for help. My dad stopped behind and the guy was scared and asked if we could light up his car while he changed a flat tire. He was terrified of being out there alone and rightfully so. Dad goes to get out to help and my sister grabbed him and said she didn't think this felt right. Dad assured us it was fine and almost got out, but my sister grabbed him again. Right then, a car flew by the door right where he would have been. Super guys jump out, one grabs the man, puts a gun to his head, and the others sprint to our car. There was a brief chase down the highway, but luckily their old Corolla didn't keep up with our Jeep and they gave up after 2 to 3 minutes of driving at 170 kilometers per hour. My sister saved my dad's life, and probably ours, by making him stay in the car that extra few seconds. Story 13. One day I was attempting to make karaoke for the first time, a kind of Filipino fried mochi, and after I popped them in the oil, I settled in and watched them carefully. I never wear an apron whilst cooking, but for some reason I figured why not this time, and as soon as I stepped out of range of the fryer, they all exploded. Turns out, karaoke can form an impermeable shell when fried, so pressure built up inside until they popped and sprayed hot oil all over the kitchen. Of course, I was safely away reaching for an apron and was completely dumbfounded. Make sure to punch some holes in all subsequent batches. Of course, once I cleaned the kitchen, I ate them, and they were delicious. 10 out of 10. Highly recommend. Story 14. Grabbed a helmet when riding a bike down a steep hill as a kid. Normally I didn't bite. I ended up falling at top speed and breaking my helmet and chipping 3 teeth. Could have been my head that was broken. This is the end of the video. Today we've listened to really lucky people stories. So be always safe just in case. Make sure and subscribe if you want these videos to keep going.